the last minute. You are now entering a dangerous liberty zone where God-given natural rights are held sacred and exercised. This is your warning. Tyranny, fascism, and censorship will not be tolerated. Ideas will be exchanged freely. Rigorous debate and open discourse is encouraged. If you are weak and your beliefs are fragile, you should leave now. Prepare yourself. We are now live on the Dangerous Liberty Podcast. All right, folks, what is happening? Happy Monday, right? Happy Monday, everybody. Hope everybody's doing great out there. Man, we got so much to talk about. But I was planning on, look, we're trying out a new format. And number one, I got a new producer. I got a producer that's actually producing. So we're going to be playing around with some things and trying to figure out a workflow. You guys be patient with us, but I think it's going to be much better. On top of that, I've been trying to create a new format where we're going to talk about stuff, provide you content, news, current events, whatever else is going on for about an hour, and then leave about an hour or so for questions, comments, and all the chasing squirrel conversations that we all tend to have. So anyways, number one, we just hit 30,000 subscribers on X. So I really want to tell everybody out there that's following us on X, thank you. We really appreciate that. And we appreciate all your support. And just like I said in my post, I appreciate all the haters because I got a lot of haters following me too. But that is okay. I want to say hi to everybody over in the chat right now. We got Con, we got Lace, we got Two's Shrets 2210. Somebody else was saying hi from Southeast Texas. So for those you don't know, I grew up in Beaumont. So all my Southeast Texas folks, I want to say hi to them out there. Ruger Rouge, Lori Matthews, Jackie Archambault, and many, many more. Also want to say Sean Faulkner. Also want to say thank you to all the mods out there and to producer Jen, who is working behind the scenes right now, working hard and trying to keep me straight. Jeff Johnson's over there too. So we got a lot of things going on today. And we're going to start a couple different spots here. We're going to take a little diversion real quick just for fun. Now, I actually was looking at the video from yesterday, actually. And there was a lady down there. Hopefully she's here today. I believe her name is Mary. So Mary, I hope you are in the chat so we can address this. I don't usually do this, but I think, number one, I think she's coming from a place of good intentions. And, so I figured I would. So real quick, I did want to share this screen. Let me see if I can do this real quick, and address. This is a very, very common comment. And so I want to address this, and we'll address a couple of different things that often come up when it comes to this entire thing, when it comes to the Charlie Kirk. Then we're going to get into all the stuff going on with Islam, Tucker, Candace, and how all of that comes together, because all of that stuff is connected. And we're going to get heavy into that. I definitely want to see your comments. Of course, as always, make sure you like, subscribe, throw a comment down there. I will prioritize the super chats. We appreciate you guys' support. They give us the super chats. And then, of course, we will try to get to as many live comments as possible as well. So first and foremost, on this particular comment down here, I want to bring you guys into this. I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not, but we got Mary Burton Major 5350. And where she started out is, she started up here. The Charlie Kirk story does not make sense. I listen to everyone, and you attack Candace on the regular and applaud your guest for not doing the same. The whole, I don't know, not a 30-06 and a gun expert's claiming it makes me trust them less. Just do you, man. She goes on to talk about some other different things. And, I kind of talked some smack to her saying, are you a gun expert? She shot a 30-06 before, so now she's a gun expert. No offense, Mary. I'm not trying to talk too much crap to you. I'm trying to be as respectful as possible. Honestly, she says it's not any one thing. It's all of it. The tiny hole the hand signs, signals, the sketchy story of a furry lover at the excavation site, Mike immediately walking off and not rendering aid. There's more. It's not cut and dry. No, it's not cut and dry. And what we have is a very unusual circumstances. We don't see, assassinations taking place all the time. And then you have how people react to trauma. And this is well documented. Yeah, everybody in that whole situation, we start analyzing, and everybody does. Everybody as you're analyzing, everybody that sees what's going on, there's a lot of people that are acting weird. There's a lot of things taking place at the exact moment that Charlie Kirk is shot. All of those things are understandable. That's what's going to happen. I went through this exact same thing with the Butler incident, right? When President Trump, his attempted assassination at Butler, Pennsylvania. We saw all the same things, like, oh my God, this guy was doing this at the exact same moment. This guy was doing this. He was involved. Oh, look at over here. We got signals coming from over here. We got these flashes on this glass over here. So those are gun flashes coming from. We have, other things happening in the trees. Look at this bird that flies by that has to be a drone or something like that. There was a lot of that. And luckily, a lot of that stuff I just had to step away from a lot of those people. So I do want to address what we have. Number one, she's saying the tiny hole. All right. What we have is an entrance hole. That entrance hole was especially large for an entrance hole. So I don't know what she means by that. I'm assuming maybe she's talking about the exit wound. I don't know. But I will tell you that is a larger than normal exit entry wound. That being said, I did have a whole nother, I downloaded this entire book on basically terminal ballistics. All right. And there's lots of different studies out there. Since this has happened, I've spent a lot of time studying terminal ballistics, what happens when the round actually hits people, not just gelatin blocks and things like that are not good analogs for human beings. And I've learned a lot. There's a lot of firearms experts out there that are going into a lot of these things with a lot of preconceived notions, including me. I definitely hadn't spent a lot of time on a 30-06. I've shot a 30-06 a handful of times. That being said, I guarantee you, I know I've shot over 1 million rounds. Some of that from belt feds. We teach long range schools. I teach long range shooting. I am a student of long range and have been doing so for a long, long time. I also do a lot of ballistic testing for the channel. And a lot of this expertise in those areas came after I got out of the military. I was a sniper. I was a Green Beret, all the things, right? But a lot of the expertise on so much of this, especially on the terminal ballistic side, came after I got out of the military. That being said, I hadn't done a lot of studying of what actually happens with the 30-06. Now, once we saw what happened, you guys know, originally I thought that it hit body armor. It looks like it deflected. It doesn't. And just like I've said before, what we're looking at is an extremely high-speed energetic event that we're trying to capture with 30 frames per second. I did the calculations. You are missing at a round moving around 2,200 feet per second with a camera frame rate of 30 frames per second. You're missing like 98.4% of what's actually taking place. It's not, we don't have enough information there. And it doesn't matter if you slow things down. I hear this all the time. I have this editing software. I do too. Got like 4 different editing softwares. You can slow that down all you want. It's creating frames, folks. It is not pulling additional information. That information isn't there. All that information, everything that's taking place is in between frames. 98% of what actually took place was not caught on camera during that high-speed interjected event. So with that being said, there's that portion of it. Going back to the terminal ballistics portion of what we have going on there, I too was like, hey man, and I've never said, and a lot of people have put this phrase in my mouth, like that's impossible. I've never said that's impossible. I always know that there's room for the unknown in ballistics. What I've always said is that it is anomalous or that is outside of the norm. And I think it is. That's fair to say. Of what we'd expect, and that's with the assumption that we're dealing with like a 180 grain round. We still don't know. I got a pinned post on my X account. Like there's no way for us to come to a conclusion or predict what was going on with that round without knowing all of the variables that we would need to know to even start to come to a good prediction. right? There's too many variables to deal with. And there's no way for us to really simulate those things. We don't have Charlie Kirk. We don't have the exact round. We don't have the exact same gun. We don't have the exact same angle. And even if we were shooting a analog that was perfect to Charlie Kirk from the exact same spot, that round would hit slightly different every single time. There's variance within the round itself. There's variance within the projectile itself. Here's my current theory of what's going on with that. I do think that there was something going on with that round, and that's why we have a larger entrance wound. We have extreme yaw, which means that round is moving. It's actually not stabilized and moving straight. All right. It is actually yawing at extreme amount. So it is not moving in the most aerodynamic way. And on top of that, once it hits tissue, it is going to start tumbling immediately. And that would lead to, most likely, lead to a non-exiting round and lead to the results that we have. Going back to what I was saying, at the beginning of this, I said it was very unlikely that that would take place. And then somebody said to me, well, what about Martin Luther King? I'd never studied what happened to actually Martin Luther King. So the next several days, what I did was I studied what actually took place with Martin Luther King. And folks, it is crazy the similarities and the parallels of what took place with Martin Luther King, how he was killed. He was killed with 30-06, and we'll talk about some of the conjecture or contention around that in just a moment. But he was killed with 30-06, and he was shot from 65 yards, and we have a very similar wound patterns. They're slightly different. I'll tell you that right now, but he was also shot from half the distance. Now, there is a lot of contention around Martin Luther King, and like who shot him, was the CIA, lots of conspiracy theories. It has never been contested, that nothing I could find, and I read every document I could find, I couldn't find anything where people contested that it was a 30-06. That was accepted. And what happened with Martin Luther King, it actually hit him in the jaw, and then actually went down into his neck, hit his spine, deflected downward, and actually ended up in his right shoulder blade. I mean, Martin Luther King was actually buried in an open casket. They were able to fix everything up. All right. I'm sure it was not pretty. So there's that. And then you go on to things like Chuck Ritter. Chuck Ritter is a Green Beret. He's still alive. He's been shot 4 times with 7.62 by 54. 7.62 by 54 happens to be almost exactly the Russian equivalent of 30-06. He was shot 1 time, and this is actually on video, the crazy part about this. All right. He was in combat in Afghanistan, and one of his team members actually had a GoPro on his helmet. And this is all captured. You guys can look him up, Chuck Ritter, on X. He was actually shot in the side, didn't hit bone. It went into his flesh, between his ribs, I believe, he said, and then it actually hit his spine, deflected downward, didn't exit. And not only did it not exit and didn't kill him, he continued to fight, folks. And then all of those wound patterns are documented. And then I have a post from Chris Lash, Dana Lash's husband. He did another deep dive into a bunch of military and forensic pathology reports that were specific to 30-06. One of those that he actually has listed, lots of different case studies in there. You guys can go study this. A person was actually hit in the arm with 30-06 from fairly close range. It wasn't that far away. I don't remember the distance. It actually shattered, I think, his ulna, one of the arm bones, either the radius or the ulna. It's the only two that you have in your forearm. It didn't exit. It didn't exit. So there's that. Now we go into those facts. So number one, the idea that, let's just state this outright. The idea that a 30-06 is just so powerful that it just blows his head off. It'll blow his head clean off. All of that stuff, there's so many case studies and so much information, but it's not something that is shared a lot or is even known a lot, even by gun experts. The terminal ballistics on human beings especially is something that's just not well documented or well studied. So we don't even know, we don't even have a large enough sample to take a look at this. So what we have is a bunch of people that have shot deer, which, by the way, I get emailed pictures of deer all the time where I know one just recently, it actually hit him in the shoulder bone, didn't penetrate at all. It was a 30-06, it was like a 170 grain bullet. And then on top of that, we have a wide variety of commercially available ammo. All right. They sell varmint rounds. You can, with 30-06, you have the ability to shoot everything from jackrabbits all the way up to a freaking moose. and there is all the appropriate ammo. So you have a wide spectrum of ammunition. And the idea that you're going to get the same results with all that wide spectrum of ammunition that's just commercially available. Now, we have no idea what ammunition Tyler Robinson used. We don't know if it was hand loaded, if it was store bought. We don't know what condition it was in. We don't know what the projectile is. We don't know what the weight is. We don't know if there was something wrong with the barrel. We don't know if there was something wrong with the ammunition. What I am going to be testing very soon here, now that weather's clearing up and some other things, we know that he made alterations to the ammunition. All right, he engraved on what I would assume is the brass casing. We don't know if he did anything to the actual projectile. Excuse me. If he did end up engraving on the side of the projectile, that would make that round completely unbalanced once it starts, once it's trying to gyroscopically stabilize. It's not going to be able to. That would create a bullet that is yawing in an extreme fashion and could cause exactly what we saw. There's other reasons. There's literally 100 reasons that would explain the wound patterning and the terminal ballistic effect that we saw with all of that. Now, with all of these other things that Mary has talked about in here, the hand signals. I don't see hand signals. Like, yeah, we see Dan Poole, move his arms a little bit. We see Frank Turk, who we know wasn't involved with security at all. He's adjusting his hat. Some of these things are just ridiculous. People have highlighted them. They've blown them out of proportion. The sketchy story of the furry lover. I mean, we know that's true. Like, what are we saying? That the FBI made that up? We know it's true. And then, the excavation of the site. Look, we've talked about this. The FBI had that entire facility, the entire campus locked down for 3 full days. They were working 24/7, forensically processing that site. Without a doubt, we had blood in that area that they had to clean up. And there was blood. That's another thing I keep hearing, folks. I can't show them on YouTube. Maybe I'll post them on X. Look, for everybody saying there wasn't blood on the ground and there wasn't blood on the table and there wasn't blood. Most of the blood, by the way, was on the stand. They had those packing, they almost looked like Pelican cases. I'm not sure exactly what they were, but that platform, there was a ton of blood in the platform. There was a ton of blood in the grass, without a doubt. There are pictures. Those just haven't been widely circulated. And so they had to tear up that grass to get that biological hazard out of there. It was completely up to the college, the university, to redo that area. I mean, you can say whatever you want. Once after those 3 days, and the FBI hands that area back to them, all right, they can do whatever they want with it. So unless we're going to say that, UVU was involved in this, and I know that's where a lot of people are like UVU, the FBI, Utah authorities, local police, state police. Like, there's so many people involved in this. The idea that there was a conspiracy, to me, is bonkers. And this is okay. And then also, I want to address all these things. Erica should have went silent. It's called mourning. Like, it's a little crazy to me for people to be telling Erica how she should process Charlie's death. Like, I don't know who you think you are to determine that. And, there's that. But then she steps out like a rock star building a mock-up of the murder site. That is just not true. It's not a mock-up of the murder site. The Prove Me Wrong tent was iconic. It was a memorial to Charlie. Like, just about everybody that had ever seen Charlie, they'd seen him under that tent doing what he was known best for, and that is at schools and universities debating. It is up to you to determine if any of these things are in bad taste. That's fine. But to turn around and not accept all of that stuff is subjective, and you can paint the picture however you want. And of course, there was a lot of people making money and still are making money off the grift. They're like, oh, look at this. Look how inappropriate this is. This is macabre. All right. This is macabre that we have this freaking tent up there. Like, it was a memorial to Charlie. That's what he was known for. It wasn't the mock-up of his death site. Like, that's like your twisted way of looking at it. And every time that there's a moment where you can subjectively analyze what's taking place, and you immediately go to like conspiracy craziness. And then let's go back to what everybody says. I'm not accepting this. It's just too weird. That's like ultimately the last. I'm not accepting this narrative. It just doesn't make sense. So at the end of the day, we have the official narrative that really doesn't, just based on the information that we have. And of course, there's information gaps because we don't have all the information that the Utah authorities and ultimately the FBI provided, forensically provided. So we don't have the call logs. We don't have all the cell phone location data. We don't have, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that we don't have, right? So there's information gaps, but we have quite a bit. And we have quite a bit right here in the charging documents. Right now, the only theory that makes the most sense, and by the way, is the most simple, because this entire thing was not that hard to plan, was not that hard to execute. None of this was difficult. So if we go with Occam's razor, this makes the most sense. We have a guy, and I've never said and will never say until we know otherwise, that Tyler Robinson acted alone. I've said from the beginning, I think there was more people involved, or at least knew about it. At a minimum, Lance Twiggs knew about this. But this fills all the gaps. And we have a timeline. We've gone through this myself. I've gone through all the timelines. I've gone through all the information step by step by step. Gray Hughes investigates. He's done this even more detailed than I have, going through the timeline. This fills 98% of the information gaps. Now, you can accept this, or we can go with the idea, just because you have some doubts about ballistics that don't even make sense. I explained all that just now. But let's say you have doubts in that. Like, we have one anomaly that doesn't make sense. Ballistics do weird thing. But even if we have that one thing and we have 1,000 other things that says Tyler Robinson did it, but you're going to reject those 1,000 things because of this one anomaly, or you can pick 10 more anomalies. I don't care. Add that to the pile. But we have so much evidence going against Tyler Robinson. And then you're like, nope, I'm not accepting any of that. Not going to do it. It's all fake. It's all fake and gay, as our favorite Queen of Lies would say. But then you're going to say, I'm going to accept something else. What are you accepting? The exploding mic theory? You talk about, I mean, do you understand how complicated all of that has to be? We have a gunshot that we have to perfectly time with some exploding thing, and it has to, an exploding mic that has to defy physics, that doesn't burn, char, or cause any damage to the shirt itself, but it's enough energy to kill a man. And then on top of that, we have to time those, all right? And we still have to get, like, no one's explained to me that the fact that we never hear a sound signature from the exploding mic. And then we definitely have someone on the roof, so we have to time all that. We have to create a patsy. And then we have this really sophisticated conspiracy of, I don't know who. Are we talking about CIA, the French Foreign Legion, Israelis, everybody making these plans down at Fort Huachuca? But we got to time all of these moving parts, many people, different pieces. And then it was such a sophisticated plot, and it was so sophisticated that they got away with it cleanly. No one saw them. They're not on video. They got away, no problem. But the one thing they screwed up with is that, by golly, they freaking planted a 30-06 when it should have been something else. They just forgot that one piece, screwed that piece up. And then you still can't tell me why Tyler Robinson was there 3 hours away from his house. You can't tell me why he had a firearm there that was his dad's. All right. I keep hearing the idea that that picture was stock photo. Folks, that we've proven that time and time again. That was not a stock photo. The first time that picture was found on the internet was September 10th, the evening. I think it was either New York Post released it or Steven Crowder. I'm not sure, but regardless, the first time that picture was released was September 10th. You can look this up. You're all detectives out there. So that wasn't a stock photo. That was the actual firearm. And we know that his parents turned him in based on recognizing him from the surveillance footage. We know that they recognized the firearm itself and asked him about that. So there is 10,000 times more anomalies if you go with any of these other theories. A second shooter, what a dumb thing. Palm gun and the exploding mic theory, two dumbest theories out there by far. I mean, they're just dumb. Like, You got to know nothing about nothing to believe either one of those, in my opinion. No offense to you people out there that believe that, but they're dumb. And we can talk about more of those. I do want to get an explosives expert on that where we can discuss that. I've talked to multiple. I think at some point, I already know their thoughts on it. They share my opinion on that. We need to get they didn't want to come on because look, these industries, especially, I was talking to one specifically that actually taught at an academic level, explosives, many other elements of that, right? And, this person didn't want to come on because they were afraid of the backlash. So we might have to get somebody on that I verify. I don't know. I try to convince you that we verified this person knows what they're talking about, and maybe we just have them on audio only. So I don't know. There's a lot going on there. Let me hit a couple of super chats. Lucas with the big $100 big money. Thank you, buddy. We appreciate you. Thanks as always. By the way, 6 max equals bad to the bone. Need low data whenever you get a chance. 10-shot group was average 0.83 MOA. I got low data for you, buddy. We'll take care of you on that. I need to know what projectiles you're shooting on that. Let me go back to here. I heard a rifle, not a exploding mic, LOL, from the witnesses who captured sounds. Look, the other part of this is, oh, here we go. Folks, this is, let me remove this other one. Look at that. See, this is Chuck Ritter. All right, this is where he was shot with 7.62 by 54 from 25 yards away. 25 yards away. With all intents and purposes, this was a 30-06. He was shot right there from the side. It actually hit his spine, deflected downward, and he lived to fight another day. And he's fine now. Sorry, folks, I got a chest cold. So this was a 30-06, no exit wound. 7.62 by 54, ballistically identical on that. Speaking of witnesses, going back to this, and I'll go back to this. Speaking of witnesses, folks, I have talked to now over a dozen witnesses. I've had, I think, 4 on camera, maybe more. I'll have to think about that I've interviewed on camera. All of them say the same thing. There is very little difference in any of those things. I haven't met anyone that was actually there, and there may be, an anecdotal person out there that whatever. Witnesses are going to perceive things differently. I haven't met anybody that thought like the security team was involved. I haven't met anybody that was there that thought anything crazy. Again, there may be some folks out there, but I haven't talked to them. Going to UVU solidified everything for me. Between that and then actually studying what happened, getting into and doing a deep dive on terminal ballistics and looking up case studies of very similar incidents, it is more common than we think. And yes, the results are anomalous. That doesn't mean it didn't happen. That doesn't mean it's impossible. And we're going to have to wait to see what we hear from the ballistics report. But as it stands right now, you got everything else going in that direction. It makes no sense to throw that out and accept something with a lot less evidence. That's where I'm at with all that. So you guys tell me what you think on that, and see if we got any other questions, comments, or anything else going in that direction. I don't look down on folks just because I'm super intelligent. I'm humble. That's very nice of you, Ramza. All right, folks. So we got a lot to cover as far as everything else going on, how this ties into the Iran war, what we just saw, multiple incidents of near terrorist attacks here in the United States. There's a couple different aspects or directions I'm going to cover this in. So first and foremost, let me add this to stage real quick. We're going to change this tab over here. Folks, I shared this post. I wrote this short little article or whatever and shared it on X just the other day. Yesterday, as a matter of fact. and I wrote coordinated information operation. What's really behind Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, and Megyn Kelly? Wake up, America. All right, this is a clear coordinated shift of what's going on. I want to get a little deeper into this, specifically on Tucker Carlson himself, because there's been a lot of questions, and I've been thinking about this long and hard. I'm not saying that I have the answer of what's going on with Tucker, but I've come to what I'm concluding of what's going on with Tucker. And you guys tell me if you think I'm wrong. So the common threads that we have between Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, and Candace Owens, and everybody down in the comments has been saying, well, what about this person? What about this person? All of these people, I'm including all these people: Ian Carroll, Ryan Mata, Project Constitution, Owen Schroyer. Like, we could go down the list. All these people fall into the same category, but these are the three main ones that get the most visibility. And all of them fall under the same common threads: a very pro-Islam messaging. And I want to talk more about that. Provoking anti-Israel sentiments. And let's just stay right here for just a minute, because I can understand, I really can. I can understand people that are critical of Israel. I get it. All right. If you disagree with our foreign policy, if you disagree with what was going on with them in Gaza, like, all of that's fine. That's fine. But I start believing that you're not acting in good faith the moment that we start kind of squishing these two things together and conflating these two things right here. You can convince me that our relationship with Israel isn't the best thing for the United States. As a matter of fact, it's not that hard. And it's not just Israel. I don't want to be sending money or providing a lot of protection for most countries out there. All right. I do think that I'm also easily convinced, and I do believe that we have a strategic partnership with Israel that actually pays better dividends than with most countries. Like, we spend billions and billions of dollars of sending money to countries like Liberia, and a whole bunch of other African countries, other Middle Eastern countries that make no sense. We do have a strategic partnership with Israel that is unique. And we're developing other strategic partnerships with even like Qatar, which Qatar is an issue right now. And I understand where people look. At the end of the day, I understand people don't like Jews. Let's just kind of throw that out there. There's those folks. But here's the problem that I have. When you start protecting or ignoring Islam, I think I would consider you a rational person if you're like, you know what? I don't like our relationship with Israel. But by the way, Islam's a real freaking problem, because it is. It's one of the biggest problems we've ever faced. We will continue to face for years to come. And we're going to get more into that in just a few minutes as well. But they all downplay the threats of, not only downplay the threats of Islam, they actually kind of protect Islam. And then at the same time, they're talking about the Epstein files, why are we doing anything with the Epstein files? Folks, as soon as someone can show me something that's actionable within the Epstein files, there's not a person out there that doesn't agree that the PDF thing shouldn't be prosecuted. That's why it's become such a favorite trope of the woke right, whatever you want to call them, the hate Israel first crowd, whatever you want to call them, and the left, by the way. Right now, you cannot distinguish the difference between the messaging of the left and the woke right. They all hate Trump. They think the Iran war, the Iran conflict that's going on right now, and they're bringing up the Epstein files. And they're like, oh, this is what he ran on. Actually, he didn't run on that. He didn't run on the Epstein files. He mentioned the Epstein files a few times in multiple different interviews, but that was not his primary platform. And now we have the Epstein files. We can all go through the Epstein files. We can all see that, because I sure have, and I'm watching what other people are reporting. So far, I've not seen a single thing that is actionable. But beyond that, I do know Pam Bondi has levied charges against several people out of the Epstein files. But there again, if that's what you're putting out there, and they're creating a wedge out of the Epstein files because it's an emotional, like, we all want to protect kids. And if anyone is out there harming children in that way, it emotionally gets us involved in the conversation. And of course we want to stop that. So that's why that has been a favorite trope. Like, what about the Epstein files? Oh, you're just starting this conflict because You don't want to deal with the Epstein files. No, you deal with the Epstein files. Show us some actionable stuff. I'm ready to go with the Epstein files. But at the same time, we're going to sit here and pretend that the number one PDF ring in the entire world, and we're talking a population of like over 3 billion, by the way, the entire world that has institutionalized PDF of regularly assaulting little boys, regularly assaulting and marrying underage girls. They've institutionalized it. What about that ring? And that ring is Islam. Why are we not talking about that at all? Because that is a very real thing. And it's happening by the millions every single day. Every single day that's taking place. But we don't talk about that at all. All we want to do is focus on the Epstein files. And why do we want to focus on the Epstein files? Because of number 3 right here. It's undermining the Trump administration. Direct attacks on Trump's pro-Israel policies and Iran strikes. Tucker says Trump has lost his way on MAGA by aligning with Israel. Owen accuses Trump of treason and betrayal, regretting her endorsement. She furthered that even today. I didn't watch her show today, thank God, but I know she's continued that. And then also because of 4, this is why they don't bring up Islam and all the issues that I just brought up, discouraging GOP midterm turnout. And then lastly, what all of this is about, from number 1 to number 4, is all about number 5, ensuring Democratic success. The Democratic Party. They want Trump, they want MAGA to lose the midterms. That's what they want to do. And folks, I'm telling you right now, this is an op that's being pushed by Russia, China, and I don't have any proof of this. I'm just telling you what I think. All right. Russia, China, all the Middle Eastern countries, and different organizations within the left. George Soros, and you can see that this stuff is just boosted and magnified. But then what's very interesting, I just looked at some polls the other day. Like, we're looking at like 98% of original MAGA voters still support Donald Trump. Like 98%. His poll numbers are better than I thought they were, for sure. And that's across both Democrats, independents, and Republicans. So a lot of what we're seeing online isn't real. We've been given this perception that there's all this pushback against Trump, but most of this stuff, folks, is bots and sock bots and people posting with multiple accounts and everything else. They're giving us the illusion that there's this push against Trump that really doesn't exist. So this is part of this. And I want us to make sure that we understand that. Going into, I want to show you this real quick. Because this really plays into what we need to.
The United States is currently engaged in an operation.
Meantime, an alarming report of threats outside Iran. ABC News reports Iran may be activating sleeper cells. Quote, the U.S. has intercepted encrypted communications believed to have originated in Iran that may serve as an operational trigger for sleeper assets outside the country. If true, further illustrating Secretary of State Marco Rubio's point, we are fighting a terrorist government.
The United States is currently engaged in an operation targeting the world's leading hostage taker, the world's leading sponsor of terrorism. They are trying to hold the world hostage. They are attacking their neighbors. They are attacking neighboring countries, their energy infrastructure, their civilian population. They're attacking embassies. This is a terrorist government. This is a terroristic regime. And we are seeing them conduct terrorism using nation-state elements, using weapons like missiles and one-way attack drones. And the objective of this mission is to destroy their ability to continue to do that.
But Iran's
all right. So there's that. And here's a little reminder, because I think many of us have forgotten. This is just since 1996, the terrorist attacks that have taken place here in the United States. We got Atlanta, Georgia, 96, Central Olympic Park bombing, New York, Arlington, Shanksville. Well, this was September 11th, obviously. And look, if you want to, I know there's a lot of people out there that will say Israel did September 11th. Fine. You know what? Let's set that off to the side. July 4th, Los Angeles, California, LAX shooting. That was definitely not Israel. Little Rock, Arkansas, recruiting office shooting. Fort Hood, Texas, mass shooting in the military base. Times Square car bomb attempt, May 1st, 2010. Northwest Airlines flight, the underwear bomber. Marathon bombings, 2013. Military facility shooting, Chattanooga, Tennessee. Mass shooting at holiday party, San Bernardino. Pulse nightclub shooting. Bombings in Manhattan and New Jersey. We remember that. The Ohio State University car ramming and stabbing, truck ramming on a bike path, naval air, and this is just the United States. This isn't including France, Nice, Paris, the Bataclan attacks. September 6, 2024, planned mass shooting at Jewish target disrupted, shooting at Jewish men en route to synagogue. Plot to bomb Israeli consulate, truck ramming in Bourbon Street, Molotov cocktail at pro-Israel rally, shooting of National Guardsmen, planned attack in Washington, D.C. We just had that. Here's just this week, and I think there was a couple others here but we had just March 6, 2026, Southwest Flight 2094 diverted due to passenger bomb threat. March 7th, 2026, New York, IEDs thrown. We're going to talk about that in a second. The IEDs that were in New York at the Gracie Mansion. And then March 9th, a suspicious package. And we're not even including, that's the one that's not in here, is Austin, Texas. I don't know why Grok's not including the Austin, Texas one. That guy was clearly he was part of the religion of peace. So there's that. Now, I want to talk a little bit about what was going on. We have the self-radicalized ISIS protesters use explosives called the Mother of Satan. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. We have the bombing that took place there at the Gracie, the attempted bombing. It was a homemade device which did not explode. They were hurled at anti-Islamic demonstrator led by Jake Lang. Jake Lang, he is a far-right activist. He's every time you see him on video, he's throwing out racial epithets, whatever. Take that for what it is. Doesn't really matter. The point is he doesn't deserve to get blown up. During the questioning, Balat responded that ISIS was the reason for his conduct. Balat tossed a jar-sized device that contained the explosive TATP into the crowd. TATP, or triacetone triperoxide, also known as the Mother of Satan because it's so volatile. Basically, friction, jarring, moving, banging. I can't believe that it didn't go off when he threw it. And it was probably because the formulation of the explosives wasn't probably correct. The other problem that we ran into with that, or he ran into with that, thankfully, was that the fuses were defective as well. But it is a type of homemade explosives. After being arrested on March 7th, 18-year-old Amir Balat was caught on the officer's body camera saying, "This isn't a religion that just stands for when people talk about the blessed name of the prophet." He said, "If I didn't do it, someone else will come and do it." He also said, "All praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. I pledge my allegiance to the Islamic State." So there's that. And then I want to show you guys, this is actually the charging document, the indictment on this. It says, in the NYPD vehicle en route, NYPD Balat, without being questioned by the NYPD officers transporting him, made the following spontaneous utterances in part, and is captured in the transporting NYPD officers' body-worn camera footage. This isn't a religion, everything I just said. And I'm waiting for the rest of the indictment documents to come out, and we're going to go through those. I'm curious to see what else is in those. So more to come on that. I've also heard he was originally from Turkey. I have heard that both he and the other guy, which we're going to show you a video that's pretty interesting about this. He and the other suspect, Ibrahim Kayumi, 19, both had traveled overseas and done additional training, specifically with ISIS. I haven't found a lot to confirm that other than a little bit of, internet chatter, but we're going to address that shortly as well. I do want to play this video for you because this gets a little bit weird.
Different parts of Pennsylvania, they're in different age groups. I'm saying they're from different parts of Pennsylvania. They're in different age groups. They are not known to each other. They did not live together. They did not have family or school ties. There is no reason to believe they knew each other prior to this incident, and I don't know how well they knew each other at the time of this incident. I'm saying they're from different parts of Pennsylvania. They're in different.
So this is a lawyer representing Amir Balat. He's saying they don't know each other. And I thought the post that was tied to this is pretty hilarious. Nick Sorter said, just in, the attorney for the failed Muslim bomber says the two didn't know each other prior to their attempt to bomb New York City. So his argument is Islam is so dangerous that a Muslim with bombs can walk up to another Muslim in the street and they'll agree to participate in a bombing. So that's where they stand on this. Real quick, I want to address any questions or anything that we have or comments on that. But look, folks, we need to be, I'm telling you, like, number one, we need to realize the threat that's happening in this country. I'm from my dad still lives in Dearborn Heights. All right. That's where I was originally born. I grew up in Texas, but I'm from Dearborn, Michigan. And I go back up there to visit that city. And what is happening there is unbelievable to me. We need to understand that. Here's my thoughts on it. I'm not going to project them on you. I don't think that Islam is compatible with Western society. I just don't. I've been overseas. Look, there are elements in culture in the Middle East that I really like, I really appreciate. But there's so much that is controversial and antithetical to Western society. I just don't believe it belongs here. And, you know, that's where I stand on this. With that being said, we need to be paying attention to what's going on. There's no other religion out there that does the things that they do. We don't see terrorism. We don't see these theocracies that are forcing people to abide by the religion itself and the most extreme forms of that religion. We just don't see that anything in any other society. Sure, we did, like, sure, the church did things like that back in the Dark Ages when we were, which none of us would condone any of that stuff today. And I know that's the thing that people always jump back to. So, take that for what it is. But we need to be careful. And I do think that what Marco Rubio was talking about, there are sleeper cells in this country. And we had 4 years where millions of people were flooding over our borders. We have no idea how many people and where they're at that are ready to be activated, that are ready to target Americans, that are ready to, wreak havoc on our American society. They hate us for our values. And for some reason, they think that they can inflict this terror. And we're going to accept Islam. We're going to cower into accepting Islam as our religion. What I am surprised about, going back to what I was originally saying about Tucker, Ian Carroll, and all these other people, is, again, you can hate Israel. You can think that they're evil. That's fine. But to sit there and not also point the finger and say, hey, you know what? This is at least an equal or greater threat. And I hear nobody doing that. And I think that is extremely suspicious. I don't think that Israel is a threat to us. I really don't. We can talk about politics. And again, we can talk about where money goes. And look, all of these countries, many different countries, spend millions of dollars every single year trying to influence our politics. That works. There's all kinds of different lobby groups. We can talk about AIPAC all day, but why aren't we talking about CARE? And speaking of CARE, let's take a look at this video right here, because they're telling us what they plan on doing, what they're planning on doing.
Muslims, a roadmap like this, and you say, is this khutbah about politics? No, this khutbah is about the ummah affairs. This khutbah is about our future. This khutbah is about akhirah. This khutbah is about what to do next. We have been blessed, and here's the action plan. Brothers and sisters, we have 4,000 mosques in the country. 4,000 mosques. If each mosque establishes a small fund for scholarship to give scholarships for 5 students in the following areas. 1, for journalism, to tell our story.
I want you to listen to what they're talking about. All right. And just for a second, let's jump back out of here. CARE is openly building an entire generation. By 2050, they are working to produce 100,000 journalists, 100,000 filmmakers, 100,000 lawyers and policy operatives, 100,000 potential candidates and office holders, and those candidates can now be supported by CARE's new super PAC. And what is the GOP doing while this political Islam machine with documented terror ties maps out 25-year plan to penetrate media, law, government, academia, and culture? Taking, holding hearings, drafting ban CARE, ban political system bills that will never pass, tweeting, expressing concern. Meanwhile, CARE is preaching the plan from the pulpit, launching the pipeline through mosques, supporting races with federal super PACs, starting with Zohan Mamdani there in New York City. Folks, they have a plan, they have an objective, and it's open and it's out there. And they're already here in the United States. We saw what Yuri Bezmenov talked about, the plan to overtake America from the USSR. And we know it was extremely effective. And it was not nearly as aggressive as what we're seeing with Islam. Like, we need to start openly talking about this more and not be cowered into silence. Look, even talking about this, number one, I have no idea how YouTube's going to react to any of this. I don't really care. But the fact is people are going to be like, hey, Gary, you're racist, you're Islamophobic. I'm not Islamophobic. I'm not afraid of Islam. I promise you, I'm not afraid of Islam. What I don't want is Islam overtaking, where they're intentionally trying to overtake my country. Like, we have an American society where the greatest country on earth, because of the principles in which this country was founded. Though every single country I see in the Middle East is a lesser country, and most of them are absolute crap holes because of Islam. I mean, we saw what Islam did to Iran. We saw just the other day, if you were watching this, we played videos of what Iran used to look like before the late 70s, before they were taken over by the Islamic Republic. I mean, it was a beautiful country, beautiful culture, beautiful people. And now you can see what we're left with. So, I mean, if we want to talk about threats, foreign threats, there is no greater foreign threat in my mind than Islam. And, again, I don't hate the people. You want to practice your religion, that's fine. But when I see them intentionally planning out taking over our country, I have a real problem with that. And it's going to. I think they're going to be successful. They've been successful in every other country. And look at what we have. We have the left cowering to them, promoting them. The left promotes Islam because they know that Islam is not compatible with the United States and what we believe in Western society. And they don't like Western society. They don't like the United States either. And everything that the principles on which we were founded. So, I mean, they are a natural ally. And now what we have is the woke right. The people that pretended to be MAGA, the people, maybe they even were, but somewhere in there, I mean, they just succumbed to complete brain rot. If you want to believe that everything goes back to Israel and the biggest problem is always Israel, like, you're just an idiot. Like, I don't know what else to say. You are absolutely silly. So, we need to wake up with what's happening. And what's crazy, and going back to Tucker, look, I've been getting this question all week, and I've been asking myself the same question all week as well, is like, what is going on with Tucker? Because I do think that Tucker is different from Candace, right? A lot of people will sit there and say that, it's just money. He's been paid by somebody. Maybe that's true. I don't think that's true, though. I think the more I've thought about it, I believe what's happened with Tucker is that we are finally seeing the real Tucker. He's not grifting now. He was grifting before. That's my conclusion. He has gotten to a point financially. Look, he has his own company. He's making millions and millions of dollars off of the Tucker Carlson network. He now has making millions of dollars off of his nicotine pouches, Alps, and God only knows what else he has. He had millions and millions of dollars in the bank when he left Fox and all the other endorsements and things that he was affiliated with and different streams of income. And I think now what we're seeing is the real Tucker. I think before he knew he had to toe a line to make sure that he kept his base and his viewers. And I think what we're seeing now is just like he doesn't care anymore. And I think it's really unfortunate. I think it's really unfortunate. Indeed. We're fighting Iran. We're fighting Iran is not for Israel. No, it's not. It's because the dollar is pegged to oil. China is trying to change that. They have put in place rails to devalue the dollar to becoming yuan as a world currency. Look, a lot of this stuff goes back to BRICS. Like there's multiple things in here. Number one, I do think that coming in, one of the things that Trump ran on was definitely the idea that Iran was not going to have a nuclear weapon. I voted for him on that. I voted for him because of that and the border. Like, I think it is imperative that Iran never sees a nuclear weapon. When you have a country, a nuclear capable country that is constantly chanting every single day, death to America, you got to take them at their word. And if they're going to continue to conduct terrorism, which they have all over the world, they are the biggest sponsor of terror by far in the world. I think Donald Trump was very serious about, hey, either come to the table, negotiate. You got 10 days to do this. If you don't, I think this is what we had in mind. Yeah, there's a lot of other objectives that are beneficial to us. Number one, we're cutting off oil from Venezuela to China, and now we're cutting off pretty much the rest of China's oil from Iran. So there's definitely some strategic value in what we're doing, but I think it was long overdue. I think, like most of you, I'm not interested in, if we can achieve a regime change from afar, I'm fine with it. I don't want to see troops on the ground. Look, at the end of the day, what we all don't want to see is we don't want to see Americans die in war. We've spent 20 years doing that. That's kind of where I'm at. You know, if we end up having to put troops on the ground for some sort of peacekeeping, like, I don't know. Like, I just don't want to, I want to mitigate as much risk as possible. And if it means to just continue to bomb them back into the Stone Ages, I don't care whatsoever. Not even a little bit. Another kind of a controversy I want to hit real quick, and then we'll get to some more questions over there. Let me see if I can find this real quick, because this is going down. I'll just go back to my timeline. Play this earlier. Look, there's a lot of questions going on, and Matt Tardio has been covering this. Let me make sure I'm showing you what I want to show you here. So going back just several days ago, basically when this whole thing started, of course, many of you have heard about the idea that we struck a Iranian girls' school. I've posted a couple things about this. We'll stick with this one for right now. All right, so Matt Tardio has been doing a deep dive on this. I've been suspicious of this from the very beginning. That being said, it's really not, it doesn't matter to me that much. And now, again, I hope we didn't actually hit the Iranian school. I think no matter who did it, it was not intentional. So if one of our missiles accidentally struck a Iranian girls' school, number one, we weren't targeting there. Like, we're not going to spend that amount of money on a non-strategic target. All right, it's a waste of time and money. Makes zero sense. So if that's what they're trying to say, that being said, if it is ours and something happened and we just had a misstrike, which does happen from time to time, it's not beneficial to us. We didn't intend for it to happen, so it's collateral damage. It's not a war crime or anything else. Collateral damage definitely takes place. But Matt Tardio here, he said additional evidence of a KH-55. Now, I don't think it's KH-55. I think it's a SUMAR, which is a derivative of a KH-55 cruise missile not a Tomahawk. I don't think this is a Tomahawk. They continue to analyze this, and there's a couple different problems as to why this is not a Tomahawk. Number one, the attack angle. All right, the attack angle is not correct for a Tomahawk. There's also a video of this. It literally looks like a missile that gets launched from Iran, and it basically goes awry and then comes straight down. The other part that is almost definitely why this is definitely not a Tomahawk is the blast signature. All right, this is not the normal blast signature of a Tomahawk missile. It really doesn't matter ultimately in the larger scheme of things. It's an unfortunate incident, whether it was an Iranian missile or it was a U.S. missile. If it was a U.S. missile, wasn't intentional, it is collateral damage, and it's just unfortunate, and that's going to happen in these types of conflicts. Simple as that. But I do think this is a Sumar missile. The KH-55 Iranian cruise missiles, those are actually, everything I've researched on those says those are actually launched via air. The Sumar is actually ground launched. So Matt's been doing great work on that. He's been following up with that information. So we'll see what's going on with that. But the problem that I have with this is that the MSM and all of the Hate Israel First crowd, they immediately jumped on this. They were all over this saying, look, the U.S. is committing war crimes. It's not a war crime. All right, we didn't intentionally target a girls' school. Doesn't even make sense. Doesn't make sense from strategic or tactical or financial standpoint. Like, just didn't happen. But we never, our mainstream media never gives up a chance to work as propagandists for our enemies. The other one thing that I wanted to point out too is to all the social media accounts that spread the same lies, just know you're just as bad as MSM. It's always narrative over truth, and it's disgraceful. And that is what we're seeing with the one thing that I'll point out that is very consistent with the Hate Israel First crowd, whether we're talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination, whether we're talking about geopolitics or anything else, is they have no problem lying through their teeth. They do not care. Integrity of their information doesn't matter whatsoever. Right before I got into this, Ian Carroll was trolling one of these posts saying, oh, the United States has already admitted to this. That's already been put out. No, it's not. That's a complete lie. That is a lie. The investigation is still ongoing. We'll end up finding out. I could end up being wrong. You know, I'm going with my country. All right. I trust my country more than Iran. And until we're proven incorrect, and I want to see really good evidence, because this is a normal, this is a con that all of the Muslim countries play. This is what they do. We've seen this in Palestine. We've seen this in Gaza. We've seen this everywhere where they're saying, hey, you're targeting our schools. You're doing whatever else. And sometimes they've blown up their own schools. Sometimes they're running around in moving munitions around in the ambulance with medics clothing on. And we have videos of that stuff. So like, they're always playing this game. It's all propaganda. And I'm going to need to see some really good proof before I believe that it was our missile, period. She Candace Owen spoke today about Erica running for president today, and that being Erica plan all along, that she heard that right away. Yeah, look, Tyler Boyer talked about this. I think it's ridiculous. You know, there was no plan for Erica to be president. She's not going to be president. I mean, Charlie Kirk was the one that we all know could have ran and could have won presidency. That's just the fact. The city of London is the one who backs and uses both radical factions of Islam and Zionism for their own purposes. Correct. And we also see radical Islam that's completely infiltrated. And forget about radical Islam. I saw a meme earlier today. One said moderate Islamist and radical Islamist. And one said, I will unalive you to make sure that you convert. And the other one said, I will let him unalive you so that you convert. And that's really is the difference between the two. Trump says he wants to be involved in the next leader of Iran pick. I believe that. Delta will probably have a say until they get it acceptable. You're right. Bibi is God's right hand, not the Pope who blessed the block of ice. Yeah. Look, Bibi is a politician. I don't put a lot of trust or faith into Bibi. So far, look, I'm just going to stay agnostic toward the person. I support Israel 100%. Definitely support them at this point. I've looked into this up, down, left, and right. I can't find a reason not to be honest with you. And Israel is a strategic partner. And I do think that we are better having them as a partner in the Middle East. I also think there's room for a discussion of how much money we send them, what that looks like. I would like a little bit more visibility. Maybe it's just a matter of me educating myself on all that, because I know there's a lot of good information out there. Green Beret Nap Time did a great job talking about the return of investment that we get with our investment into Israel. I do think it's 10 times better than most countries, without a doubt. So the Muslim Brotherhood planned to take over America from within was found during the Holy Land trial in 2004. This is exactly as you're saying. It is. Look, they have a plan to take over the United States. They had a plan to take over Europe. They're accomplishing it faster than I ever thought they would. And the amount of political support that they get is insane. When we just recently, there was a trial. I don't know, Jen, if you can pull that up, look, see if you can find that information on. There was a woman who was assaulted, SA, all right? Now, we're all grown, sexually assaulted by Muslims. And then she called him a faggot. Afterwards, she was charged. I don't even think they were charged. And again, if she can pull that up, we'll take a look at that. But that's what we're dealing with over there. Like, they are protecting them and they are punishing their own citizens. I almost switched to Al's pouches, but couldn't bring myself to support Tucker. What is the brand of choice? So I use Velo. So true story. I did switch over to Alp, and I have about 6 rolls up there that I'm going to throw away. I'm just going to throw them away because I told you all once I had like a subscription. So they were sending me, I don't know what it was, whatever, a monthly thing. Right. So, and I need to quit doing nicotine pouches altogether, but regardless, yeah, I got like 6 or 7 rolls upstairs that I'm just going to throw away. And I actually opened one. I ran out. So I opened one and it was all dried out and stuff because it's been sitting there since Charlie's Memorial, because that was it for me. When I heard him say and give that speech at Charlie's Memorial, talking about, there's these people in the back room that are just back there eating hummus. I was like, oh my God, bro, what is going on here? And then like 2 days later, he's saying, oh, I wasn't talking about the Jews. Come on. Be a man about it. Quit being, and that's the thing that really bugs me about Tucker. He's just so disingenuous and dishonest. Don't build military facilities next to schools and hospitals. That's their own fault. Well, and it's intentional too. And I would not look. We just had Iran. The estimates of over 40,000. Let's say it's a tenth of that. Let's say it's 4,000. Iran was killing people out in the streets, protesters out in the streets, left, right. And now you're going to try to, because we're trying to stop that, because we're also trying to stop a nuclear threat, trying to stop a terrorist, a sponsor of terrorists, a terrorist country, a terrorist regime. I hate that we even sit there and say like a sponsor of terror. Like, no, they're committing it. And we want to sit there and wring our hands over a potential mistake by the United States, when in fact it could have been either an accident of Iran or intentional. Nobody here, if we understand Iran and the things that they will do, they will kill 40,000 people out in the streets, allegedly. Again, let's say 4,000. We know it's a lot. They'll kill those people out in the street. You think they're worried about 140 or whatever students? They couldn't care less. If USA is at war here at home, there's no way my kids are going to school. Yeah, I don't blame you. And there's lots of reasons to take your kids out of public school system. Other than that, Paramount Tactical, radical Islam running rampant in Canada. 3 synagogues shot up, plus an Iranian gym owner's gym was shot up. All right. So Jen got this for me. I'm going to pull this down so we can see. German woman given harsher sentence than convicted rapist for calling him a disgraceful rapist pig. There was another one in the UK. I haven't even seen this one. I read the story. It was definitely in the UK. So this is another one, another example. This one's in Germany. I'm going to make that thing big. All right. A German woman was handed down a harsher sentence than a convicted rapist after she called him a disgraceful rapist pig. Maya R. 20 was jailed for a weekend after she, Jen, get rid of that advertisement for me. Found guilty of defaming the man, who was one of 9 attackers who gang raped a 15-year-old girl in Hamburg Park 4 years earlier, according to the reports. The man had only been given a suspended sentence and served no time in prison due to his age, the New Zealand Herald reported. So, folks, that's what we're dealing with. If you get attacked and you disparage said attacker, you're the one that's going to get punished. It's insanity. I mean, when did this become a thing, especially in Europe? And obviously it's not a thing here in the United States, but it's coming. We know it's coming. Yeah, make sure you guys like, subscribe. If you'd like to support the channel, down in the description below, there is a link. You can become a member. We appreciate that. If you're not following me on X, make sure you go follow me on X as well. Let me throw this one up here. Let me remove. Which one do we have here? All right. There's that. All right, so if you're not aware, what happened in Australia is we had the Iranian women's soccer team. They decided in protest they were going to sing. Well, guess what? They were immediately deemed that they were basically deemed traitors, and they were going to go home and most likely be killed. Now, apparently, all but 5 ended up are returning back to Iran because they're afraid what's going to happen to their families. Now, originally, Australia was not going to give them asylum. And it wasn't until President Trump tweeted and told them that they need to be given asylum. I actually had that up somewhere, regardless. So it wasn't until after President Trump talked to them, and now 5 of the girls are going to be staying in Australia, and God only knows what's going to happen to their family. So, I'm looking to see what else we have down here. Oh, yeah. This is the video I want to play.
Involving the type of explosive used in the attempted attack and just how dangerous it is. Let's bring in retired NYPD Inspector Paul Morrow, who has more information on this device that was found. So it was a homemade device, Paul, but not necessarily a cheesy one, in other words.
No, not at all, John. And I have to tell you, having done about 15 years worth of this kind of work, counterterrorism work, this is a bit of a game changer. First of all, let me start by saying New York City got extremely lucky yesterday. TATP is enormously volatile. It is not very stable. It's extremely powerful. And it is the footprint, and if you go by past events, of serious bombing attacks. The London 7/7 attacks, Richard Reed's attempt on a plane. Many of us remember the Ariana Grande attacks outside the Manchester Arena. These are situations where you're well into double figures of people killed, never mind injured. So this was a very, very serious attempt, much more serious, I would argue, than it likely seemed to many right initially. And as to why they didn't detonate, in light of the fact that they were charged the way they were, is going to be something I'm sure that the federal authorities are going to be looking at very closely as they investigate these two perps.
Yeah, and hats off to the New York City Police Department for running in and stopping those attacks. They didn't just run away or go to a place of safety.
Absolutely.
All right, that was, I don't know if it was playing for you guys. That was playing really jumbled for me. I don't know if it was, we're playing that directly from this, which I've never done before. You guys let me know if that was cutting out for you guys or not. Like I said, we're trying a bunch of different things tonight, so just bear with us. K-Pasto says, I am so over our GOP. They suck. I agree with you. Look, there's a lot of things that I'm disappointed about our GOP, our senators, representatives, and everything else. I mean, the only person I'm really not disappointed with is the Trump administration. They're not perfect, but I mean, I think that overall they're doing a good job. That being said, look, we can't buy into this black-pilled nonsense. Our only alternative right now is the Democrats, which is, you know, a socialist communist group of godless people that want to destroy this country. I mean, that's our other option. So again, I think it's really important for us to get aggressive in the primaries and do all the fighting that we need to push for your perfect candidate in the primaries. But then we do need to come together in the midterms and the general election. Like, that is imperative that we do that. If not, I mean, things are just going to get worse. We really don't have a lot of good options with that. And that's just the way our system is. And as bad as it is, it's still pretty decent compared to most out there. Charlie must have been working for Iran. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you're joking or being serious with that. That's where it's going. Look, this is the thing. As we see what's going on with the Candace narrative, we're dipping our toe more and more and more into Charlie was the real issue. And within a couple of weeks here, unless something else comes up for Candace to hijack, I think that's where she's going to go with. She's going to realize, just like she thought Erica was perfect, was great. There was a little bit of, there was some signs letting us know where she was going to go with this, even from the beginning. But she had nothing but good things to say about Erica. She was pretending that she was holding the masses back from attacking Erica. And when you start looking at her comment section, there is a lot of negative things being said about Charlie Kirk. And again, these people were not people that knew Charlie Kirk before he was killed. Many of them either didn't know him or didn't like him to begin with. And so it's just natural to continue to attack TPUSA after his death. So we're going to continue to see that for sure. Yeah, I know, K-Pasta. I hear what you're saying. She says, let me rephrase, I'm MAGA and will vote. Trump is doing great. I hate the people stabbing him in the back. Look, Trump is an agent of change. And so that's what's going to happen. It's, you know, they are all part of the Uniparty. They've learned to work together. Luckily, I do see a lot of turnover taking place in these primaries. I think we're getting some better candidates in there than we had before. So the American people are speaking, and the conservatives are speaking and moving forward. So, I mean, that's the way that we need to address this stuff for sure. James Lindsay is. I like James Lindsay a lot. He's ahead of everybody when it comes to what's really going on. I'll go watch him on Dana's show today. I saw him on Dad Saves America. Go watch that, Marks. Look, Candace is a snake, without a doubt. I'm actually as much or more look, Tucker, I think, is more deceitful than Candace is, to be honest with you. And that's saying a lot. And this is what I was saying going back to the beginning. When I said, look, this is not about Candace. This is a bigger thing. Now, what I originally thought was going to happen was before we started seeing the changes in Tucker, or these drastic changes in Tucker and Megan and everybody else, I thought that we were going to have Candace, that eventually this whole Candace escapade would kind of fall on his face. People would see her for what she is. And then a few months later, something else would replace Candace. What I'm seeing now is that this problem that is Candace and the psyop that's taking place around her, it's being dovetailed into something bigger. And that bigger thing now is Tucker Carlson. It is Megyn Kelly. It is the Ian Carrolls, the Baron Colemans. It's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and absorbing Candace into this much bigger problem. And this is what I'm talking about. This is going to cause some major issues in this country, and we need to wake up. And there is this thing where these people are protecting and downplaying the threat that Islam is. They're trying to make Israel like, look over here, guys. Israel's the real evil person. This is what's going on. This is what we need to pay attention to. This is the real threat. While they're going to have you completely ignore a much bigger threat, in my opinion, and that is Islam spreading all over the United States. Gary, you should watch the Dana Last James Lindsay interview on her YouTube channel from today. What Lindsay thinks is happening is right in line with you and a few of us have been saying. I will. I'll check that out. I will check that out. I actually meant to reach out to Chris Lash and have him come on. He and I have been talking, DMing. I'm going to have Chris on, and I don't know, maybe we can get Dana on sometime too. That'd be great. Gary, last week you mentioned being disenchanted with male doormat Christianity. You should have Raymond Ibrahim YouTube on to talk about what the warrior monks were like. I will. Yeah, like when it comes to Christianity and it comes to, we got to get rid of this this idea of toxic masculinity has long seeped into Christianity. We need men leading the church. We need men leading this country. And I have, again, there was times when I was in the military where I'd start going to a church and I was just always turned off by all of these churches that seem to want these like sheepish males. And I just can't stand it. And I have, I've multiple times I've had like this identity crisis. Like, how am I going to be me and be a Christian? And I think a lot of people, hopefully there's other people out there that could relate. I'm not the only one, but look, and then there's other parts of it. It's like, yeah, you should be a different person. And I get that. And we should be kinder and more forgiving and more patient. And, again, all of the fruits of the Spirit should be manifesting. But at the same time, what we can't be are these, sheepish men that aren't afraid to stand up for what's right. And I say this, and I mean this for women too. Like, Christians should be fierce, especially today. And I don't mean to be ugly or to be mean, although sometimes I am, especially on X. And look, you're going to hear me curse and do things like that from time to time. That being said, I know where I sit with my Savior, and I know where my walk with God is. And hopefully I'll just continue to improve. But what I'm not going to do is just turn into some wimpy dude. That's not what God made me to be. It's not what God made most men. That's not what you're made to be. And we need to start standing up. I think we've been using the Bible and we've been using Christianity as an excuse to just sit back and do nothing. And that is not what we're called to do. We're supposed to be out there. We're supposed to be speaking truth to lies. We're supposed to be witnessing to people. We're supposed to be the salt of the earth. People should look at you and be like, I want to be that person. And if you're just sitting in your house and you're just doing your own thing, and you're like, I just want to avoid conflict. All right, you're not the salt of the earth. That's not what God called you to do. And you can see that with every single one of the apostles. They didn't just sit around. No, they were out there and they were getting thrown in jail for the things that they were saying. So, that's where I'm at with all those things. And, again, I'm still trying to figure this out. I'd love to have, there's been a bunch of people that I've been looking up on X, different ministers that I would love to have on the show. And I think that's something that we're going to incorporate on a regular basis. Like, we need to figure this thing out. I want to figure this thing out. I want to figure out what the right thing to do is. I want to know from a biblical standpoint where we should be on Israel, for instance, and make sure that we are actually doing the right thing. What I don't believe, look, what I can tell you, I spent a lot of time studying the Bible as I grew up. I was indoctrinated in it. I understand the Bible. I don't understand all things. All right. With that being said, I do know that God made a covenant with Israel. All right. And yes, we had a new covenant that included the Gentiles, the non-Jews. God didn't just sever his covenant with the Jews. And I do believe that us blessing Israel make sure that we're blessed as well. I do think it's a credible argument to say, okay, is this the real Israel of the Bible? I believe it is. All right. I don't just understanding how Judaism works and the fact that people weren't out there proselytizing, they weren't out there evangelizing. Like, that's just not how Judaism works. And the fact that it's never been, the Jews have not had it well since going back to the Bible, the Old Testament, right? So I don't know. I think there's a lot that supports that. Gary, get Lucas Miles, head of Turning Point Faith, on the show. Charlie picked him to lead. Great guy. I will check him out for sure. There's been a bunch of folks that here's what I would like. There was a bunch of people that people have referred to me that I looked at that were essentially, they were Jewish. All right. What I'd like to hear is from some evangelicals, some Christian preachers and theologians to really go through this. I don't necessarily I'm not opposed to it, but for now, I don't necessarily want to hear the Jewish argument on that. I think that is, I don't think that serves us well, and it's not very compelling to most people out there. Why don't you reach out to Andrew and ask them to recommend a pastor to come speak, or Frank Turek or James Caddis, the pastor that works with America on the Bible and 365? Yeah, look, there's a bunch of options out there. I'm looking, folks. Trust me. I've already sent out probably 10 different DMs to some good theologians out there that I've actually researched. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Biblical Israel is a person. It was Jacob. I understand that. Expose the women of these Islamic families to the world outside of the archaic sexism they're living with. Let them know they can get birth control. Let them know they can get away from it. Like, I'm not a big fan of birth control. I'm just going to tell you that right now. I mean, yeah, I'm not against it necessarily, but I just think that's weird that we're talking about that. Like, let them know they can get birth control. Again, my wife was on birth control for a long time. She got off of it. Whatever. I'm not saying that birth control is wrong. I'm just saying, I just think this is weird that this is the solution that's thrown up here. No offense to AJWOZ2595. Yeah, look, there are countless scriptures that are clear indicators, both in the New Testament and the Old Testament, that we should support God's chosen people. Now, God's chosen people part of that has been extended to everybody. That is what the New Testament is. That is the new covenant. The new covenant includes everyone. So that much I do know. Where's Vance? He won't speak out against Tucker, and he's not been at Trump's side since bombing Iran, but Rubio has been instead. Do you think Trump and JD had a falling out over Iran? That's a good question. I really hadn't thought about that, but you're right. Like, we've had multiple press conferences. I've seen Pete Hegseth there, Marco Rubio. We haven't seen a lot of Vance. That's actually, I'm going to be digging into that tonight. That's an excellent question or comment. That I do know who he is. So, and Trump did as well. And maybe that's the answer for it. Maybe there's nothing, maybe there's no rift between them whatsoever. And it's just a matter of they're doing multiple things, running ops separately. Gary Frank Turk is going back to UVU in a couple of weeks. I might go up there and see him. Maybe that might be a good idea. Yeah, he was. I do know that. Oh, Jeff's talking trash in the comment section. Yeah, look, and I know I've actually looked up and watched a bunch of Amir Sarfati's content because this was one of the first names that was recommended to me. Again, what we're battling is a bunch of evangelicals or Christians and Catholics, by the way, out there basically saying that, hey, these are not the Jews from the Old Testament. This is completely different people altogether. They've hijacked Judaism. They're not the same people. They're a bunch of idolaters. They're satanic. These are the tropes that we're hearing about all this. I think the best explanation is somebody that's it's going to be evangelical or a Christian theologian that will be a little bit more objective than hearing directly from basically a rabbi, right? I'm all in on some of those things. I would love to have some of these people on later on. I would like to solidify some of this information just for myself, and hopefully you guys will find it helpful as well. I mean, I generally know what I believe, but again, and these are things that, we could probably look up for ourselves and figure out, but I think it'd be fun to host some of these people to talk about these bigger issues. Jay spoke today. If you will, Jen, if you got that, pull that up. To everybody's point, though, I know what you guys are wanting. You're wanting JD to come out and, distance himself or condemn Tucker Carlson. I would like that too. I don't know if that's going to happen. But that's what everybody's wanting, right? So I am interested to hear what JD may have said today. Try Alan Jackson, Murfreesboro, Tennessee is awesome on the church and politics. Love to have him. We can have a different pastor on here every single week. I'd be fine with that. I'm waiting to see if Jen pulls that up. I'm going to pull a few of these things off. Never mind. I can't. I'm a heathen, but I've had problems with Christians, Lutherans, Catholics as individual people, not as what their religion is. Yeah, look, that's a problem that we're always going to run into, right? We're dealing with the messenger, which is always not a very good one, and not the message. I think most of us that claim to be Christians have spent a lot of time or seasons of our lives not living correctly. I know I have. And I'm not saying I'm living 100% correctly now. I am much more dedicated to my faith than I've ever been. I will say that. So, Con, I think you need to, again, stick with the channel, man. We'll try to find out the truth together. Jen, you can go ahead and play this if you'd like.
Thank you all. Thank you so much, Ed. It's great to be here. It's great to have you in our nation's capital. I always say to everybody, this is a very big group. I can't see any of you because these spotlights are glaring bright. The person who runs these spotlights, Ed, must be a Democrat because I cannot see a single person in that crowd. But I'm told there's about 700 of you out there. And so I say to everybody, whether it's a small school group or 700 great firefighters from all across our country, that this is your nation's capital. This is your capital. Your tax dollars built these beautiful monuments and museums. And I know you got a lot of work to do while you're here in Washington, but I hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy this beautiful city, especially as the weather turns really nice here in Washington, D.C. Now, the one bad thing about the weather is when it starts to get warm, you know, as a politician, we're gearing up for political campaign season. And I'm probably as sick of politics as you all are. So that's the one downside. But I hope you enjoy this beautiful spring weather and enjoy your nation's capital while you're here. We're thrilled to have you. And I just want to say thank you so much to Ed and to the entire team at the International Association of Firefighters. Ed Kelly has been a great advocate for you and for firefighters all across the United States of America. In fact, when we met backstage very briefly, we talked a little bit about some of the great legislative accomplishments of the Trump administration, and we'll talk a bit about that here in a second. But then the second half of the conversation was Ed trying to shake me down even more. He was trying to think, what else can we get out of this administration? And I love that. I love a guy who fights for his people. I love a firefighter who knows he stands for and represents firefighters. And I hope all of you know that we're going to work with you over the next few years to continue to solve the problems that exist for our firefighting community. One of the things that a lot of you know about this administration and hopefully appreciate about this administration, but I'm going to make my pitch here, is that we have been unique among Republicans in that we haven't turned away organized labor. We have tried to find ways to work with organized labor. Not that we're always going to agree, but another great Bostonian, Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters Union, we found ways to work together to serve working people. And there is no group of people that is harder working and more important for our community than our firefighters. And so thank you all for being here, and thank you for honoring me by inviting me to give you a few remarks today. Now, before I get into some of my other remarks, I want to just start on a slightly somber note here, because on a personal level, I was honored to be able to participate in the dignified transfer of 6 American soldiers who were killed overseas in this conflict with Iran. And I had never done that before, and a lot of you served our nation in uniform. I know a number of our firefighters have all across our country. And I just want to say that if you are the praying type, and I certainly am, I hope you'll spare a prayer for the 6 souls that we lost, for the 7th soul who will be coming home tonight, and for all of their families. You all know better than almost any category of Americans what it means to put on a uniform and to sacrifice for our country. And so I hope you'll share a moment of prayer for our brothers in arms, for your brothers in arms who keep this country safe in their own way, just as you keep the country safe in your particular way. So, to move on a little bit, let me just say that what we have tried to do in the Trump administration, what we have tried to accomplish, is to make your lives easier, knowing, of course, that we're never going to be able to make your lives completely easy. You guys have some of the hardest jobs that exist anywhere in the United States of America.
All right, I was expecting like a kind of a shorter video. No big deal. Thanks, Jen, for pulling that up. Maybe we'll pull that up tomorrow or something like that and actually cut to the meat and potatoes of some things there. Let's see. JD has the Peter Thiel situation too that Groyper hate. You know what? I don't really care. I don't really care what the Groypers hate. It's just like I don't care what the left hates. You're never going to please these people. That's the problem with them. Is like you're not going to please them. All right, well, who are we going to please? The Nick Fuenteses of the world? No, there's nothing that can be done. We have an administration that's gotten more done in a year, and all these people do is whine and complain about what's going on and what he's not doing and what he's not covering. It's like he released the Epstein files. You would have never got those released under Biden. And then he released what was pretty much completely redacted. I know it's not perfect. And look, there's still more to be released. Again, so far, I haven't seen anything actionable in those, but that's all these people want to talk about. It's like, what about the Epstein files? What about the Epstein files? Like, I don't find the Epstein files all that interesting at this point. I don't find them credible. They've been sitting with the Biden administration for the last 4 years. I don't know what's been done to those. I don't know what's been taken out. I don't know what's been put in there. So, like, at this point, I don't know what to say. But the reality is that there's people out there. I don't know all of Peter Thiel's politics, but I do know he's a billionaire. And I know that he's willing to support at least JD Vance and the things that he likes. You're just not going to please these people. And look, you have to work with people that you don't agree with 100%. That's what you have to do to build a coalition. And that's what a coalition is. It's a bunch of individuals that are coming together and agreeing on a couple of things. And we can sit around and talk about all the things that we don't agree on, and we can bitch about those things. But the fact is you're not going to get anything done, and you're definitely not going to beat the left. And the left is completely cohesive. Whatever one says, the other one says. I mean, they're just like, they parrot each other. They're walking in lockstep. There is no fracturing the left. It doesn't matter how crazy somebody like policies they push. They all get behind it, no matter what. And I wish we had the same, at least some level of solidarity. I'm glad that we're more independent thinkers on the right, but man, it sure does hurt us sometimes. And the Groypers are a perfect example of that. They're like, I want everything 100% my way, or I'm out of here and I'm voting for Democrats, which is exactly what Fuentes is saying, which I don't think he's ever voted Republican. I'm not convinced that he was ever conservative to begin with. At this point, him and all the rest of them are one big psychological operation. They are wolves in sheep clothing. They are meant to be in the conservative party to divide us. That's what I think they're here for. And you're going to have to do a lot to convince me otherwise. Ron opened Alligator Alcatraz to support Trump. JD Nunn? Not sure what you mean by that, Stell. Thank you for the super chat, though, buddy. Eyeliner. JD Vance doesn't wear eyeliner. I've seen him up close. He just has the dark edges of that's his thing. There's a lot of people that say that all the time, that they genuinely believe that he wears eyeliner. Yeah, so I was just looking this up. You're right. We might have to get Amir Sarfati. I always say it's wrong. I always want to say it's Sarfati, but it's Sarfati. Pastor Josh Howerton did a video on Iran has been to Israel. There's a lot of great voices out there that are worth getting in. I find Vance extremely intelligent, relates well to normal people, and at this point has seen the whole system and the drawbacks. Trump, like agenda without Trump theatrics. Yeah, look, I'm not opposed to JD Vance. I think there's a lot of worse people out there. I'll tell you, the more I hear him speak, I was very apprehensive when Pete Hegseth was chosen for, at the time, the Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense, now Secretary of War, which I love that title much better. I think it's cooler. The more I hear Pete speak, the more I think that he could be, maybe not 2028, but maybe 8 years later, right? So I really like Pete Hegseth more and more. I'll tell you, if I had to choose right now, if you were like, choose JD Vance or Pete Hegseth, I'd go with Pete Hegseth. Marco Rubio, I think, is a perfect vice president. I don't think he's quite the guy to be at the helm, but I think he is a really good vice president. Yeah, this is exactly right. Jen's hitting this up. Charlie was masterful at building a coalition. He was able to make everyone see the greater good. And also getting everybody to be a little bit more pragmatic. And we saw this after the June strikes in Iran, where he was apprehensive. He was critical going into those strikes, those nuclear strikes in Iran in last June. But as soon as they were done, he was like, look, man, like, we don't have troops on the ground. Nothing bad happened. I support President Trump. Again, he's being pragmatic about it. And the fact is, and another thing that he stated, I think that we all need to, if you voted for President Trump, you're not going to do this on the left. You're not going to do this if you're a Groyper or the woke right or whatever. But we need to say, hey, you know what? He probably has information that we don't. Because that's what you're doing when you're voting in a president. You're not voting in somebody that's going to do everything that you want them to do. And they're going to have to make decisions with information that you don't have, that at the time may seem more controversial than if you had that information. So I personally trust President Trump to do the right thing. And so far, I've been impressed. We'll continue to see how this develops with Iran. This could go bad. You know what? It could end up being one of the best things that's ever happened. Maybe we end up having a free Iran that we're not in there, boots on the ground, doing regime change. And the next thing you know, we have another very good strategic partner in the Middle East. Or there's 50 other options that could go the other way. I mean, that's the game that you're always playing on a global scale. I did hear, and we actually played it here, Rubio's speech at Davos. Extremely good. I like Rubio. I like Rubio a lot. I like him more now that he's been in the Trump administration than he was another one of those, a person that I kind of considered a rhino. He's been really good at supporting the president and getting the things done, the things that matter. And I think that's what we need to pay attention to and make sure that we keep our focus on. Trump gave JD a job because JD is way too comfy being in the passenger side. I don't know. I don't know. Look, I think especially around Trump, look, Trump is driven by ego. He wants everybody around him to not outshine him. I think that is clear. Matter of fact, I was watching a speech by Hegseth. I think I had it pulled up. I don't think I played it. But there was a speech by Hegseth where Hegseth was going on, and you know what? I got it right here somewhere. I'm going to play it if I can find it. But Hegseth was talking quite a bit, and I could tell Trump was like, all right, you're I got the impression that Trump was like, you're outshining me, like time to shut up and let somebody else talk now. But he was going on and on. It was good. It was good. So anyways, I do think that Trump requires a supporting role and doesn't want you getting out ahead of him on things. That's my impression. All right. Any other questions, gripes, or complaints? Me and Jen are still working out some things with this. I think overall it wasn't terrible. We got a lot going on here. We're trying to pull up a lot of information. It is a challenge. We'll get better at it for sure. But she's already been a big help, and I appreciate what she's doing. She was helping me with the show prep and everything else. So we'll continue to streamline this, make this more efficient, make this more fun, and continue to bring you good information. The other thing, too, I always like when we got guests on. I think having conversations is always much more fun than just presenting information. We'll continue to do that and continue to have great guests on. All right, folks. Well, listen, we appreciate you tuning in. I don't think I missed any super chats. I appreciate all the mods and all their assistance. Jen, you did a great job tonight. Make sure you like, subscribe. When you're done with this video, after this video, we turn this off. Come back to this video, like it again, throw another comment down. Half the time the comments go away. Sometimes they come back. I don't know. YouTube's always squaring us away in the most negative ways possible. So anyways, folks, I want you to have a wonderful night. I'm serious. Listen, we really need to be aware of what's going on in this country. And I think that if you have a concealed carry and you haven't been carrying your gun, or you haven't went and got training, I think you need to make those things a priority. I think things are going to get hairy before they get better. And we have millions of people in this country, and with what's going on in Iran and our aggressive stance toward these Islamic countries, we're already seeing it. We're seeing these attacks pop up. And to me, I'm not afraid of dying. The one thing I am afraid of is not being ready. I literally have nightmares of going out, and I almost never leave my gun. All right. My gun is always on me, but I'm always afraid that I'm going to go out, and that one time that you need a gun or you need medical equipment or whatever it is, and you're not prepared, I'm not prepared. So make sure that you're not those people. There's not many people out there. Most people don't even know how to jump a car anymore, right? If your battery's dead, they don't know what to do. Change a tire. Most people don't know how to change a tire. All right. Our audience is not those people. And I want you to commit this year. If you haven't went and got training, doesn't have to be with us. If you come train with us, I'd love that. Love to work with you. You'll have a good time. I promise you. Get some training, get firearms training, get medical training. If you have to prioritize one or the other, get medical training, and make sure you know how to use tourniquets. You know how to use chest shields. You know the order. Like, this is not just buy a tourniquet and you know how to use it, folks. It doesn't work like that. You need the training. So I just saw another super chat pop up. We'll address that. Was TC's volte-face outlook change before or after Nick Fuentes interviewed? TC's Tucker Carlson's changed before. It was before the interview with Nick Fuentes. I was able to decipher that. Storm pooper. No, he was already. He had already. That was after the memorial, for sure. And he had already been going down a weird road as it was. You could see the transformation taking place. I had a real problem. I have no issue with somebody like, I would interview Nick Fuentes, but I would also ask him some tough questions. And the problem that I had with Tucker Carlson's interview with Nick Fuentes is when he's interviewing, whether it be Mike Huckabee, some of the other folks that he has been extremely hard on and asked a lot of hard questions and was fairly aggressive. He did not do that with Nick Fuentes. He didn't bring up some of his most insane comments. I mean, he just gave him softball after softball. If you're going to interview someone like that, like, you need to be able to be fair and balanced with it. And I didn't see that. He handled Nick with kid gloves. So take that for what it is. But that was, he had already started to change for sure. All right, folks. Well, listen, I appreciate you more than you'll ever know. So make sure you guys keep a head on swivel and make sure you stay armed and stay ready. And until next time, we'll talk to you.